Imagine walking into a supermarket to buy a jar of peanut butter. You expect a simple choice, but instead, you're faced with 50 different brands, each offering variations like crunchy, smooth, organic, low fat, or extra protein. What should have been a quick decision turns into a frustrating, time-consuming process. And even after making a choice, you walk away wondering, did I pick the best one? Now, scale this up. Every day we make hundreds of choices, from what to eat and wear to what career path to follow and whom to date. While having options is generally considered a good thing, research suggests that more choices often lead to stress, anxiety, and regret rather than happiness and satisfaction. This paradox is what psychologist Barry Schwartz explores in his famous book, The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less. He argues that an abundance of choices doesn't free us, it traps us. Instead of empowering us, it overwhelms us, making decisions harder and leaving us less satisfied. But why does this happen? Why does having more options make us feel worse rather than better? In this documentary, we'll explore the science behind decision-making, the illusion of freedom, the psychological toll of excessive choices, the societal consequences, and most importantly, how we can overcome this paradox in our daily lives. To understand why having more choices can be overwhelming, we need to look at how the brain processes decisions. Our brain relies on two systems: System 1, fast, intuitive thinking, and System 2, slow, analytical thinking. When faced with simple decisions, our brain mostly uses System 1, making choices effortlessly. But when options increase in complexity, System 2 kicks in, requiring more cognitive effort. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, gets overwhelmed when too many variables are introduced. Instead of feeling empowered by choices, we experience cognitive overload. Studies show that when people are given too many options, their ability to make confident and satisfying decisions declines. The mental energy required to weigh all possibilities leads to stress and dissatisfaction. Every choice we make consumes a small amount of mental energy. The more decisions we make throughout the day, the harder it becomes to make good ones. This phenomenon is known as decision fatigue. As we exhaust our cognitive resources, we either start making impulsive decisions or avoid making choices altogether. A famous study conducted on parole judges found that as the day progressed, they became less likely to grant parole. In the morning, prisoners had a 65% chance of getting parole, but by the end of the day, the rate dropped to nearly 0%. This happened because the judges, overwhelmed by decision fatigue, defaulted to the safest option, denying parole. Now, apply this to everyday life. After a long day of work, deciding what to cook for dinner or what movie to watch feels exhausting. This is why people often opt for pre-decided choices, like eating the same meals repeatedly or watching whatever Netflix recommends. One of the most famous studies on choice overload was conducted by Sheena Iyengar at Columbia University. In an experiment at a grocery store, researchers set up two tasting booths. One had 24 different types of jam, while the other had only 6 varieties. While more people were drawn to the larger selection, when it came to purchasing, those who visited the smaller selection were 10 times more likely to buy. This experiment revealed a paradox. People are attracted to more choices, but they struggle to make decisions when faced with too many options. The study highlighted how limiting choices can increase satisfaction and make decision-making easier. When faced with excessive choices, people often experience paralysis by analysis. They become so overwhelmed by the number of possibilities that they struggle to make a decision. This can lead to procrastination, stress, and dissatisfaction. For example, consider online shopping. With thousands of products available, people spend hours comparing reviews, features, and prices, only to abandon their carts or feel regret after purchasing. The same happens with streaming services. Endless options often result in people endlessly scrolling instead of watching something. Real-life examples of choice. Overload, online shopping. Too many product choices lead to frustration and hesitation. Websites like Amazon offer millions of products, making it hard to finalize a purchase. Streaming services, platforms like Netflix and Spotify offer vast content libraries, yet many users spend more time browsing than consuming content. Dating apps. Apps like Tinder present an endless pool of potential matches, making it difficult for people to commit to one person due to the fear of missing out on a better option. Career choices. With more career paths available than ever before, people struggle to choose a direction, leading to career anxiety and job hopping. In modern society, we are taught that freedom equals having more choices. The more options we have, the more control we have over our lives, and the better off we should be, right? But paradoxically, an excess of choices doesn't always liberate us. Instead, it can create a psychological burden, leading to self-doubt, anxiety, and even existential dread. Think about it. Imagine a person who has the ability to live in any country, choose any career path, date anyone, and adopt any lifestyle. At first, this level of freedom sounds exhilarating, but soon the reality sets in. How do they decide? Which path will make them the happiest? What if they make the wrong choice? This is where the illusion of freedom starts to feel like a trap. To understand this dilemma, let's turn to existential philosophy, where thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Søren Kierkegaard deeply explored the anxiety that comes with too much freedom. Jean-Paul Sartre, a leading existentialist philosopher, introduced the concept of radical freedom. He argued that humans are condemned to be free, meaning that we are responsible for shaping our own lives. There is no predetermined purpose. We must create our own meaning. But with this absolute freedom comes a heavy burden. Every choice defines who we are. Since there is no external force guiding us, we are fully responsible for the consequences of our decisions. This can lead to what Sartre called anguish, a deep anxiety that arises when we realize the weight of our choices. For example, imagine a college student trying to pick a major. They can study engineering, medicine, philosophy, or art. Each choice will shape their identity and future. Instead of feeling excited, they feel paralyzed by the responsibility. What if they pick the wrong major? What if they waste years on the wrong path? Sartre's philosophy shows us that more choices don't always mean more happiness. They can often mean more existential stress. Before Sartre, Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard explored the emotional toll of having too many choices. He described a concept called the dizziness of freedom. When a person is faced with infinite possibilities, they experience overwhelming anxiety. Kierkegaard compared it to standing at the edge of a cliff. You have the freedom to jump or step back, but this freedom creates a terrifying responsibility. Too much choice, instead of feeling liberating, makes us feel lost, uncertain, and afraid. We see this in modern life all the time. A person with too many career options, too many dating possibilities, or too many paths to take may feel so overwhelmed that they end up choosing nothing at all. They keep delaying decisions, endlessly searching for the perfect choice, but never committing. This is why having too many options often leads to procrastination and regret, because no matter what we choose, we wonder if we made the wrong decision. Excessive choices don't just cause stress, they create self-doubt. The more options we have, the more we second-guess ourselves. Let's say you're choosing a career. If you had only 2 options, you'd carefully weigh the pros and cons and commit. But if you have hundreds of possible careers, you constantly question whether you made the right choice. This leads to a phenomenon called paralysis by analysis. You get stuck in an endless cycle of evaluating options, and as a result, you make no decision at all. A study by Stanford professor Kathleen Vohs found that people who were given too many choices experienced higher levels of stress and regret compared to those with fewer choices. The more we analyze, the more we fear making a mistake, so we postpone decisions or feel dissatisfied no matter what we pick. In the past, career choices were more straightforward. You followed in your parents' footsteps, or you picked from a handful of stable jobs. Today, with thousands of career paths, remote work, freelancing, and side hustles, people are more confused than ever. Many young professionals experience career paralysis. They jump from job to job, fearing that they might be missing out on something better. Instead of feeling fulfilled, they feel stuck in an endless loop of uncertainty. Apps like Tinder and Bumble have given people access to an endless pool of romantic options. On the surface, this seems like a great thing. But paradoxically, the more options people have, the less likely they are to commit. Why? Because of FOBO, fear of better options. People constantly wonder if there's someone better out there. Even when they meet someone great, they hesitate to settle down, fearing they might be making the wrong choice. A 2021 study published in Computers and Human Behavior found that people who spent more time swiping on dating apps experienced higher levels of indecision and lower relationship satisfaction. Too much choice creates the illusion that perfection is just one swipe away, leading to dissatisfaction and loneliness. In today's world, we are not just choosing careers or relationships, we are choosing our identities. Social media presents us with an endless array of lifestyles. You can be a minimalist, a digital nomad, a fitness enthusiast, a startup founder, or a mindfulness coach. Instead of feeling free, many people feel pressured to choose the right identity. They constantly compare themselves to others and wonder if they're living life the right way. This pressure to curate the perfect identity creates anxiety and self-doubt, making it harder to feel satisfied with life. So, how do we escape the illusion of freedom? The key is understanding that fewer choices can lead to greater fulfillment. Embrace limits. Studies show that people who limit their choices by setting boundaries, following routines, or focusing on one path experience less stress and greater satisfaction. Satisficing versus maximizing. Instead of always looking for the perfect option, adopt a good enough mindset. Research by psychologist Barry Schwartz shows that satisficers, people who choose a good enough option, are happier than maximizers, people who always seek the best possible choice. Commitment equals freedom. Sartre may have argued that we are condemned to be free, but other philosophers suggest that true freedom comes from commitment. When we fully commit to a path, we eliminate doubt and find meaning in our choices. The paradox of freedom is that too much of it can feel like a burden. More choices don't always lead to happiness. They often create self-doubt, anxiety, and regret. By understanding this, we can take control of our choices rather than being overwhelmed by them. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded with an overwhelming number of options. Hundreds of toothpaste brands, thousands of Netflix movies, limitless career paths. At first glance, this abundance of choice appears to empower us. But paradoxically, instead of increasing happiness, it fuels stress, anxiety, and chronic dissatisfaction. How too many choices lead to overthinking and stress. When faced with excessive choices, the human brain struggles to process them efficiently, leading to a phenomenon called overchoice. Instead of feeling empowered, we feel paralyzed. Psychologists have found that excessive choices activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making. The more decisions we make, the more our cognitive resources deplete, leading to decision fatigue, a state where making choices becomes mentally exhausting. A study published in Nature Neuroscience, 2018, found that the brain prefers fewer choices. When participants were given a limited number of options, their decision-making areas showed higher engagement. However, when presented with too many choices, their brains exhibited signs of fatigue and avoidance behavior, leading to delayed decisions or avoidance altogether. Think about the last time you had to pick a restaurant for dinner. Instead of being excited by the options, you probably spent way too long scrolling through reviews, struggling to decide. This stress intensifies when choices have long-term consequences, such as choosing a career, a partner, or an investment. One of the biggest psychological consequences of excessive choices is FOBO, fear of better options. FOBO occurs when people constantly wonder whether they could have made a better choice, leading to chronic dissatisfaction. Example, you finally buy a new phone after weeks of research, but instead of feeling happy, you wonder, what if another model had a better camera? Did I just waste money on the wrong one? Maybe I should have waited for the next version. This constant second-guessing prevents people from fully enjoying their choices. Having choices is a privilege, but too many choices can be a burden. From career decisions to what to watch on Netflix, excessive options lead to overthinking, stress, and dissatisfaction. By simplifying decisions, committing to choices, and focusing on what truly matters, we can escape the paradox of choice and find greater happiness and peace of mind. After understanding how too many choices create stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction, the real question is, how do we escape this paradox? Barry Schwartz offers a powerful solution. Limit unnecessary choices and focus on what truly matters. Contrary to what we might believe, more choices don't bring more happiness. Instead, they create doubt, regret, and decision fatigue. The key is to reclaim control by simplifying decision-making and adopting a mindset of contentment. One of Schwartz's most important insights is the difference between maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers are people who always seek the absolute best option. They spend hours researching, comparing, and analyzing before making a decision. But even after choosing, they feel uncertain, constantly wondering if they could have made a better choice. This leads to higher anxiety, dissatisfaction, and regret. In contrast, satisficers are people who choose an option that meets their needs without obsessing over perfection. They make decisions faster, feel more confident, and experience greater satisfaction with their choices. Research shows that satisficers tend to be happier and less stressed, while maximizers struggle with constant self-doubt. To overcome the paradox of choice, we need to train ourselves to be satisficers. Instead of always searching for the perfect option, we should aim for good enough and move forward without regret. This doesn't mean settling for bad choices. It means understanding that perfection is an illusion. A satisficer buying a laptop, for example, will choose a reliable model that meets their needs and feel content. A maximizer, on the other hand, will spend weeks comparing every possible option, only to feel disappointed when a slightly newer model is released. By letting go of the obsession with finding the best, we can make decisions faster, reduce stress, and feel more satisfied with life. Another powerful way to combat choice overload is by reducing the number of decisions we make every day. Many successful people, like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, intentionally limit their choices by wearing the same outfit daily. By eliminating trivial decisions, they free up mental energy for more important tasks. This is because every decision, no matter how small, uses up mental resources. The more choices we make, the more our brains become fatigued, leading to poor decision-making later in the day. By automating routine decisions, such as meal prepping, following a structured morning routine, or sticking to a limited selection of clothing, we can reserve our mental energy for decisions that truly matter. Another useful strategy is setting time limits for decisions. Many people waste hours, or even days, overthinking choices that should take minutes. The longer we analyze, the more we second-guess ourselves. A great way to avoid this is by using the time-boxing method. For small decisions like choosing what to eat or wear, give yourself just 30 seconds. For bigger decisions, such as buying a product or planning a trip, set a 24-hour deadline. This prevents paralysis by analysis and forces you to trust your instincts instead of endlessly overanalyzing. In addition to limiting choices, we must also prioritize the decisions that truly impact our happiness. The truth is, not every decision we make is equally important. Most people waste their mental energy worrying about trivial choices, like which coffee brand to buy, while ignoring the major choices that shape their lives. The 80-20 rule states that 80% of our happiness comes from just 20% of our choices. That means the majority of decisions we stress over don't actually affect our long-term well-being. Instead of obsessing over which TV show to watch or which phone to buy, we should focus on decisions that impact our health, relationships, and personal growth. A simple rule of thumb is to ask yourself, will this decision matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, don't waste mental energy overthinking it. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with decision-making is FOBO, the fear of better options. This constant worry that there's always a better choice leads to dissatisfaction, anxiety, and regret. The best way to overcome FOBO is by practicing gratitude and contentment. Instead of focusing on what we could have, we should focus on what we already have. Studies show that people who regularly practice gratitude experience higher life satisfaction, reduced stress, and greater confidence in their decisions. By shifting our mindset from scarcity to appreciation, we can eliminate regret and embrace our choices with peace of mind. At the heart of Barry Schwartz's research is a simple but profound truth. More choices don't make us freer. They make us more anxious. The key to happiness is not unlimited freedom, but rather the ability to choose with confidence and move forward without regret. By limiting choices, setting boundaries, and practicing gratitude, we can make better decisions, experience less stress, and live a more fulfilling life. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a decision, take a step back and ask yourself, is this choice truly worth my mental energy? If not, simplify it, make your decision, and move on. Because sometimes the best choice isn't to search for the perfect option, it's to choose and embrace the path forward. Throughout this documentary, we've explored a fascinating paradox, one that affects all of us, yet often goes unnoticed. We live in a world where choices are abundant, from the food we eat to the careers we pursue, from the products we buy to the relationships we build. Everything is filled with options. And on the surface, this seems like a good thing. After all, isn't choice the very definition of freedom? But, as Barry Schwartz revealed, more choices don't always lead to more happiness. In fact, they often lead to more stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. We started by understanding the science behind choices, learning how our brains struggle with cognitive overload when faced with too many options. We explored how decision fatigue drains our mental energy, making even the simplest decisions feel exhausting. Psychological research, such as Sheena Iyengar's famous JAM experiment, confirmed that people actually feel happier and more satisfied when they have fewer choices. Then, we dived into the philosophical illusion of freedom, questioning whether having more options really makes us free, or if it actually traps us in indecision and self-doubt. Existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Søren Kierkegaard warned about the anxiety that comes with too much freedom. When everything is possible, nothing feels certain. Instead of enjoying life, we are left questioning our every decision. We also examine the psychological consequences of excessive choices, including overthinking, stress, and the fear of better options. FOBO. The more options we have, the more we second-guess ourselves, leading to a never-ending cycle of doubt and regret. Social media and consumer culture have amplified this problem, constantly exposing us to the illusion that there's always something better out there, whether it's a better job, a better relationship, or a better version of ourselves. On a larger scale, we saw how society itself is shaped by choice overload. Corporations use choice architecture to manipulate our decisions, offering overwhelming selections while subtly guiding us toward the most profitable ones. The rise of subscription-based models like Netflix and Spotify is a response to this very problem, curating experiences to save us from the stress of choosing. Even in dating, endless swiping creates the illusion of unlimited possibilities, but often leaves people feeling disconnected and dissatisfied. But most importantly, we learned how to overcome the paradox of choice. Barry Schwartz's solution is simple yet powerful: satisficing over maximizing. Instead of endlessly searching for the perfect option, we should embrace the good enough choice and move forward with confidence. By limiting unnecessary decisions, setting time constraints, and practicing gratitude, we can escape the cycle of choice overload and experience greater satisfaction in life. Now, I want to leave you with a question. Do you feel overwhelmed by choices in your life? Have you ever struggled with decision paralysis or FOBO? If so, how do you deal with it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might find it helpful. Because sometimes the secret to happiness isn't having more choices. It's knowing when to let go and move forward.